and make it, kind of make it okay today, right? You're coping with the stimuli that are coming from the environment. That is actually a condition that mutes and maybe even will ultimately start to develop a decline in your ability. It's like somebody who has learned a certain amount in a field, and they don't want to learn the next thing, whatever the next thing is. For a while, they're fine because whatever they have learned is sufficient for the conversations that are happening. But then, as the skills and the information and everything moves forward, if they don't learn anything, they're less able to participate going forward. The ability then begins to atrophy because you're not able to apply or use whatever it is that you knew because the conversation has advanced beyond what you knew. Does that make sense? So what you're doing is you're coping. When you're in that environment, you're just coping. You're learning how to kind of make some slight adjustments and kind of don't get knocked out. You kind of stay in the game. But the thriver, with respect to ability, is actually moving the other people. He's not coping with what the other people are doing. He's the one that's moving the other people. How's he doing that? He's doing that by showing up with the virtuous cycle. Because let's face it, nobody wants to get on a train that's not moving if they intend to go somewhere. They want to get on the moving train. Right? If you operate on the left-hand side, they can ride your train all day long, but they're going to be where they started. Dante called it the self-same spot. You can be going around in a circle, but end up in the self-same spot, back where you started. It's a treadmill. So with respect to ability, the survivor and the thriver are very different. They're applying very different levels of ability, and they're applying their ability to different ends or different outcomes. One is trying to cope with the stimuli that's coming at them. The other person is actually directing the stimuli. They're creating stimulus. Do you notice that sometimes you go into meetings and there are certain people who always seem to be the ones who are determining how we interpret what is being said? Everybody grown. You got good vocabulary, so I graduated college. I know what the words mean, dude. Right? But why is it that you keep interpreting what that means and telling us, therefore, what we should conclude and where we should go as a result of what's being said? Why is it that you keep doing that? Because that person is trying to show up as a thriver. That person is trying to direct the activity of the organization. And they don't necessarily need positional authority to do that. They just assume the authority. They assume the authority. So ability and how you apply the ability that you have and how you bring that to the environment is very, very important, and it can be high or low to varying degrees. But not only that, visibility is the same way. With respect to visibility, the survivor looks for a point of low resistance. In other words, they want to show up in the organization such that they don't get bothered. They're looking to barely show up, or maybe not quite show up, but then they can always say, because I signed the roll, I was there. After the meeting, when the meeting notes come out, there's nothing in there. There's no reason that you should know they were there. They didn't contribute anything to what we get ready to do in the future. There's nothing in the notes about them. But if you check the roll, they were there. That's the survivor. He always there. But he's on the left-hand side. Ain't much happen. The thriver is the exact opposite of that. The thriver is actually highly visible. And there's lots of different kinds of thrivers. Some of the people, they're thriving, but they actually have a disconnect. Remember I talked about the two perspectives. You got the personal perspective and the organization perspective. Some of the thrivers, actually their perspective is disconnected from the organization perspective. They esteem themselves more highly than they actually should. Right? And the organization is on to them. We know who they are. You know who they are. Hello? Right? So again, this is not about taking everything to the maximum level. This is about picking where you're going to show up. 31 points now. They're not all the same. 31 points along the curve. Each day you got to pick where you're going to show up. If you keep coming into the organization showing up here, you're the know-it-all. And nobody likes to know it all. Nobody would be bothered to know it all. Because some of us know something. Right? However much we know something. It's okay. The idea that you know it all is probably, we're not going to buy into that. Right? So you got to pick where you're showing up. It's conscious. It's a choice. It's thinking. You got to think through. Why? Why am I showing up in that way on this day? Now, you do that with your work. You know the night before what you're going to be going to work to do the next day. Most of us don't just show up and say, what work you got for me, boss? Right? We love that. Right? You want me to bust these rocks or you want me to carry these sticks? Right? We love that. We ain't showing up like that. But what I want to encourage you to do is not only know what you're going to work on, but know how you're going to show up in your work. Yes. What's required for you to be successful in the work? Again, doing a good job, that ain't the name of the game. We expect you to do a good job. You don't do a good job, we have a whole different conversation with you. Pink slip in one hand, and there's a condolence note or something in the other hand. You're not going to be here. You've got to do a good job. That's just jacks are better to play. That's just, we expect everybody to do a good job. We talk about the value that you add to the organization and to the system. Right? That's what we're talking about. That's about these kinds of choices. So that's ability and visibility, but what about agility? With respect to the agility, the survivor is playing down. Let me explain that. You can guess what I'm going to say about the thriver. He's playing what? Up. So the difference between playing down and playing up is like when I was a kid playing on the ballpark, going playing pickup ball, basketball on the court. Anybody do that when you were younger? Some of y'all still trying to do it, but the age don't catch up. Take it from me. Right? But when you were a young buck going out on the court playing pickup ball, you could make a choice where you wanted to play typically because there would be multiple courts or opportunities to play. And you could play down, meaning you could play with people that you had a little bit more skill than them, and you could look like a superstar, play with them. Or you could play up. They're all going to be better than you. The thriver always plays up. They don't play down. They don't play down. Because when you play down, it has the effect of actually reducing your ability to actually apply the skills in real time. I'm going to say that again. When you play down, it has the effect of reducing your ability to apply the skills in real time. Why? Because the people that you're playing with don't require you to apply skills. Because they're playing the game at a lower level. I remember when we were kids and people started playing the game changed. There was a fundamental change that happened in basketball. The game went from being played below the rim to played above the rim. And you couldn't get up there and jump high and sky through and dunk and whatnot. You might as well go and sit down and watch the game. Become a spectator. The game is played above the rim, home. Sorry. You can't roll it. And so that happens in work. The game is played above the rim. And in order for you to play above the rim, you got to play with the people who are playing above the rim. Even if you can't really get over the rim today, it's going to require you to actually learn the skills and then apply them in the workplace because everybody is playing above the rim. So for you to actually function in the workplace, you're going to have to apply those skills. First, you got to learn. Then you're going to be required to apply them daily because that's just the way the game is being played. The thriver always plays up. The survivor plays down. So, I shared all this because all of this represents all of you. The missing point of data is what combination of these things are you functioning in today? And you probably the only person that knows the answer to that. Surviving, thriving. Totally different. Almost polar opposites. Almost polar opposites. So, that's kind of what I wanted to say about all that. I'm going to take a couple of more seconds here to talk about my personal journey, a few things I think might be instructive about my personal journey, and we'll open up for questions. I know that most of you, or maybe all of you, have read my bio. I would summarize it really in a couple of succinct ways. One is, I spent half of my career leading execution, becoming an absolute expert at what I was doing. Doing it. What we used to call, when I was at Tuskegee, learning by doing, training to live. Learning by doing, training to live. I spent half my career in mastery of execution, becoming a master. So when it comes to sales, there's not very much that people are doing in sales that I don't know how to do. There's very, very little somebody's doing that I don't know how to do. I'm a master of all the competencies in sales. But then I spent the second half of my career leading and teaching strategy. Now you got a lot of people that kind of understand strategy, but they don't understand it from the perspective of actually having done stuff. I'm saying, right? You know, there's a benefit, there's a value in learning how to actually do the thing before you try to teach the thing. All right? So the last half of my career I've been spending teaching corporate strategy. I did an assignment as Vice President of Strategic Revenue Management, or Strategic Pricing and Revenue Management. The whole point of that was to develop the cookbook for the company on how we actually build revenue growth strategies, and then teaching 300 general managers in the company how to do it. That was my job. So, when I think about my career, that's how I describe it. I don't talk about, well, I did this job, I moved over here and did that job, and moved over here and did that job. Those are details that add color to the description. But who can run through their bio of all their assignments on the elevator if somebody asks you, what's your career been about? That's how I describe it. The second way I describe it is I spent my career across marketing, sales, and finance to become a commercial leader. I always knew I wanted to be a commercial leader. I want to run the business. So I spent the time in the functions that run the business. Again, that has a whole series of different kinds of risks and so forth as a profile associated with it. But if you want to get something, you got to put something in. So that's how I describe my career. If I characterize my career in the context of our discussion today, I would say this honestly. I've spent far more time thriving than I have surviving. Far more. It's like I struggle to remember the points of surviving, although they do exist. I struggle to remember them because my perspective is such that it won't even let me dwell on that. I can't even stay there. I've had people to do horrendous things with the intent of negative impact on my career. I mean, I've experienced that. But I don't spend any time dwelling on that. I solved the problem. They won't do it again. Right? You know, but I don't spend time on that. And if I see those people today, I have just as much energy for them as I have for the next person. I move right on. So, you got to think about these types of things when you're thinking about whether you're a survivor or a thriver. There were a few examples of that, which I don't want to talk about because I want to leave more time for the Q&A, but I can use those in the answers to the questions. But that's really essentially what I wanted to share with you. I hope it was somehow useful. Maybe there was a nugget in there, like a little tiny nugget, right? Small enough to fit in your pocket that you can take away from this discussion with you. So that's my prepared remarks. Who has a question? Yes, sir.
So my question is, like, if you have more than one person that actually tried in a small place, let's say you have like 3 people, generally people would try to benchmark, making reference to one person and say, making reference to one person is actually thriving more or something, and maybe you're not really doing fine or something. So when you have more than one person thriving in the location, like, people are having a perspective in terms of reference to one person, like, how do you justify? Is it just like a self-decision, like a self-regulated thing? But when we're also talking about the way the organization perceives you, like when you have more than one person, I feel like they may not actually see you as being thriving, they being surviving in reference to other people. I don't know what you have to say about this.
Yeah, I think I understand your point. So the first thing I would say to you is remember now, the idea of thriving is internal. It has nothing to do with the people around you. It's totally agnostic to whoever's around you. You know, just to speak plainly, you know, may I?
Yes, please.
I thought I could. But some of our folks have convinced themselves that they can function better when they're in a room of black folks than they can when there ain't no black folk present, or they're the only one. Some people have convinced themselves of that. But there's something situational about being comfortable with the group of people who are in the room. I will submit to you that that's problematic. Because what we fail to realize is that the ability to turn that on and off is not so much as we think. It's not so easy as we think. You can't just turn on the thrive and turn off the thrive. You know, I was thriving at 1:59, but at 2 o'clock I turned to survive. There's definitely some issues going on. Right? So it has very little to do with the environment and the conditions in the environment. Now, if I think about what I think is under your question, beneath the question, I think what you're talking about is competition. Okay? First of all, I'm a firm believer competition is good. Competition is a good thing. It makes us stronger, better, personally, to compete. Remember, play up. Right? When you are in an environment of leaders, the requirements of the leader are totally different than when you are in an environment of nothing but followers. In other words, if you are a frontline supervisor in a plant, and you have a group of technicians working for you, right? The expectation that the technician have of you as the leader is very different than if you are leading one of the functions in the plant and you're on the leadership team. And you're now making a contribution in a meeting about the whole plant and what we got to do. Two totally different. The players in there don't have no similarity in expectation. The technicians are expecting you to be directive. Tell them what needs to be done. Tell them how that needs to be done. If you can, demonstrate. Show me how to do it. That would be even better. But if you go in telling the lead team what needs to be done and telling them how to do it and trying to demonstrate how to do it, show them how to do it, you're going to lose all of them. They're not looking for that. Two totally different things. So it's not that, we have to change our view of competition in that sense, of internal competition. Almost to a point where really we're not competing with each other internally, we're comparing the outcomes with each other internally. So, whatever combination of things I do produce an outcome. Just like you, whatever combination of things you do produces an outcome. What we're analyzing is the combination of things that I'm doing producing a better outcome, an equal outcome, or a lesser outcome. That's what we're comparing. And nothing to do with It could be Johnny, it could be Sally, I don't care. Is the outcome better or equal or less? That's what we're comparing. When you learn to think about it that way, you don't get caught up in personalities and who these people. That's immaterial, we don't matter. Anybody that's focusing on the personalities is missing the point. How many of you think that anybody on Wall Street cares what kind of personalities are in our meetings? Has that got anything to do with driving our stock price? Nothing, zero. But do they care about the productivity or the output that's coming from the combination of the people in those meetings? Yes, of course. So that's the focus. That's the focus. And I tell you, even though other people around you may not be having that focus, that will work for you. Keep doing that. I guarantee that will work. It's like the line in the movie when Denzel Washington was playing the coach, the football coach. Titans, remember the Titans? And he gave the old coach and his assistant the playbook. Remember that? He came in and he gave him his offensive playbook. And the guy was being silly. He said, "It's a little bit thin, ain't it, for a playbook?" You remember that? And he said, "Yeah, I run 2 plays. It's the split V. I run 2 plays, just like Novocaine. A little slow, but it really works." All right? And that's the point, right? What you're doing is going to work if you keep doing it. But don't be distracted by these other things, or who's in the room, how they're doing, and all that. You decide on that chart how you're going to show up for work. It has nothing to do with who's there. When I decide how I'm going to show up for work, I don't change because Billy's in the meeting today. I don't care if Billy's here or not. Billy got to deal with how I chose to show up to work today. Like everybody else. You know? I'm going to embrace Billy just like Sally. You know, hey, you here to work and get this thing done? Get on the team, let's make it happen. It's all good. You know, Billy got some problems that he's trying to iron out. Maybe he got some social issues, or, you know, he had, it was a long time for him putting his sheet away. I'm sorry. If he had some problems, you know, as he's trying to deal with all that and bringing that to the workplace, you know what I mean? We're going to iron all that out. They all get ironed out. So y'all slow on the uptake. It's real. It's real. It's how people are showing up. But that can't affect you. That has nothing to do with you. You already determined how you were going to show up. Other questions?
I'll take one more question just to make sure we get Barron to his next one.
How you doing? My name is Lee Jackson. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on surviving and thriving as it relates to your career, and is there like a middle ground, and did you ever find yourself in between surviving and thriving? Also, how do you feel about whether or not there may be a middle ground between surviving and thriving?
I think it's, first of all, to answer the last question first, I think it's difficult to be in the middle of surviving and thriving. It's probably theoretically possible, but not really practical. Because you either decide to show up or you don't. You either decide to play up or play down. You don't play, there's no play middle. I play up, I play with people who are better than me as a matter of practice, a matter of course, or I play down. I find weaker people and I want to stand out and shine among the weaker people. So that's how I show up. I look for the weaker group and I want to be the leader of the weak group. Some of y'all slow on the uptake. So to the former question, right, there are some examples, and that's part of some of the examples I was going to talk about. One is, I remember when I was a Kroger account executive. Everybody know Kroger, right? This is many eons ago. I was a Kroger account executive. What happened is I had already been an account executive at Kroger. But when I came into the general office and did my assignment, we changed to customer teams. What that meant practically was we went from a geographic construct to a customer-centered construct, okay? And so there was the work had changed. So the leadership came to me and offered me a position as a Kroger account executive, and at first blush, I thought, why should I do that? Because I've already done that. Anybody been there? All right? You know, so, but the deeper I thought about it, I I said, you know what? It is true that the work has changed. But even with that, I'm concerned about my personal capacity being underutilized. My solution was, I came back and said, I will accept that job conditionally. Boss said, what are your conditions? I said, well, I have looked at the new work, and I think I can do that work in about 50% of my capacity. I'd like to add to that job something else, which has never been done, for the other 50% of the capacity. What's not to like? I mean, you know, the boss was a little taken aback, you know. He probably thought I was brash, arrogant maybe a little bit, whatever, I don't know. You know, but he accepted it. It was a high-risk, high-reward move. It's the move of a thriver, not the move of a survivor. A survivor would look at that situation and say, going to do a job I've already done, play down. I'm going to be better than the people that's already in there, the new people that's coming to do the job. Yeah, the people I'm better than them to start before we ever get to leave the block. Right? The thriver doesn't look at it that way. The thriver says, no, I'm going to change the whole conversation. I'm going to flip the whole thing of what they're talking about and come at it with another whole different angle. And when I did that, it was a high-risk proposition. And we produced a wonderful outcome. I said I'm going to produce something that's brand new to the sales organization and never existed before. So what is that? I said, I don't know. I'm going to produce it. I need 50% of my capacity to go produce it. And it's going to be worthwhile, it's going to be valuable. I did a tie-up with IRI, which is still around. IRI provides a lot of our syndicated data. I did a tie-up with them and we invented something called profit baskets. We actually analyzed the shopping basket for the presence of certain products and then analyzed the profit of that basket. And lo and behold, the P&G baskets were more profitable than the non-P&G baskets. A lot of value for the company was created. But again, it's a perspective. I didn't need them to tell me I should be a thriver. In fact, if I wanted to be weak-minded about it, I could have said, they come to me telling me I'm not a player. They asked me to do a job I already did. I didn't even go there. Didn't even take it that way. So that's an example. I don't think you can be lukewarm on that. You have to be a thriver or you be a survivor, pretty much. Remember that chart, that exponential curve? It's a lot of points of difference on the survivor side. They just don't amount to nothing. You do something different, but there's no incremental value from it. You see what I'm saying? There's so many, but I'll give you one other example. I mentioned this SRM when I was doing the strategic revenue management job. When I came into that job, I was just coming back from being sales manager of Asia. Our chief financial officer at the time was Clay Daly, a name which people are now refamiliarized with. But Clay Daly was the CFO, and I was to be reporting to him on this work. And once we got the work and I started defining work and so forth, I went